Good evening. My name is Alan Journey. I am one of the co-facilitators of Southern Oregon Climate Action Now, and I'd like to welcome you to this program. And a bit later on, you'll hear from the other co-facilitator sitting right next to me here. But let's do a little housekeeping and we'll offer some Zoom tips. Those of you who have been with us time and time again will probably have these all memorized. Please mute yourself so that we don't disturb other people trying to listen to the program. If you have any questions as we're going through the program, please write them into chat, type them into chat, and then press return, and that will send them to everybody. And when we get to the question time, Ellie Cosgrove will read the questions to the presenters. You have screen options. You can use the Hollywood Squares version, or you can go to the top right-hand side of your screen, click View, and then you can either select side-by-side speaker or side-by-side gallery. If you select side-by-side speaker, the focus will be on the person who is speaking. Side-by-side gallery will give you a strip of the audience down the right-hand side of the screen. This presentation, as you probably have already realized, is being recorded. Thank you so much for joining us. We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which most of us here are sitting or standing, the Takelma, the Shasta, the Klamath, and the Modoc, and we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. This evening's program is divided into 3 sections. There will be responses to questions that have been submitted in the chat at the end of each section. These will be facilitated by Ellie Cosgrove. And then we'll have, for the last 5 to 10 minutes of the evening's program, we'll have Kathy giving us a quick update on what Socan and other groups are doing in the arena of climate change. And if we have a few extra questions that folks would like to ask, our speakers have agreed to stay with us after 7 and deal with any questions that are outstanding. So there will be some action items mentioned during the course of the program. These will be available to you at the socan.eco/action page under individual actions, select renewable energy. Those have already been posted, so they should be available for you. And so now I'm going to end my share screen and hand off to Ray Sanchez-Pescador from Solarize Rogue, who's going to introduce himself and his presentation.
Thank you, Alan and Kathy. It's a pleasure to be back here with you. It's been a long time, but we've been very busy working. And so we've got a lot of stuff to report back with you guys. So my name is Ray Sanchez-Pescador.
Ray, before you start, can you go to full screen, please?
I am.
Okay, thank you.
Can you see it now?
We're good, sorry.
Okay. My name is Ray Sanchez-Pescador. I'm the president of Solarize Rogue. And we are going to be talking about the community solar program in Oregon. And for those of you that do not know Solarize Rogue, we are based out in Talent in Oregon, of course. We're a 501c3 organization. It's a nonprofit. We're staffed 100% by volunteers. So all of us are spending our free time working for these endeavors. And our goal is to increase the use of solar energy in the Rogue Valley. And we deal with residents and businesses and renters and so on. And our website is listed below if you want to visit us at some point. And what I'm going to talk about today is why do we need a community solar program in Oregon? Why is this important? What is the community solar program? How does it work? And then I'll share a little bit about what Solarize Rogue has done so far in this arena. And we'll talk a little bit about how you all can participate in these kinds of programs. So why community solar? Let's talk about the problem first. So many years ago, Oregon launched what's called the net metering program for solar. And that was available to individuals who had a suitable roof. They could put solar panels on their roof on their houses. and then take advantage of the energy produced to compensate for the energy that their houses were spending. The challenge was that, as we all know, not all the roofs are created equal. There's a lot of roofs that have shades because they're either next to trees, because they're in the hills, because they have buildings, or some of the houses that we have around are old, very old, and cannot withstand the weight of solar panels on the roof. Or people live in mobile homes, and these again are very fragile. They can't stand the weight of panels. The roof slopes in the wrong direction, or people don't necessarily own their own roofs because they're renters. And so they need to deal with the landlord and figure out whether or not the landlord is interested in transitioning to clean energy. And that's not always possible. Or people live in a multifamily building, and again, you just have a single roof that is encompassing for a variety of different families. So one of the things that became apparent quickly was that installing a solar panels on somebody's roof has a certain cost. But because you're building such a small system, it's really expensive to put solar panels on your roof. When you're building a much larger system, the cost on a per panel basis drops down significantly. And when you can actually do things like sharing the output of a community of a solar array amongst the different families, then you can actually start addressing or thinking about addressing some of the issues that have been brought up with respect to inequality in terms of access to solar energy. So in 2016, the Oregon legislature approved what's called SB 1547. It became law, and it essentially, under a lot of different words, it really says that community members can now share the output of a photovoltaic solar system. That is almost transformational in the sense that now you can have a centralized system by which a lot of different people in the community can actually benefit from the energy produced. That was illegal before 2016 in the state of Oregon. So that was very helpful. And so again, so why is community solar better than putting solar panels on your roof? Is that, well, yeah, it's much cheaper. It's much cheaper by several fold to build a much larger system. You can benefit from the solar panel output, even if the solar panels are not installed on your roof. And this is very important for people that move around. You can become an owner, you can own those panels, or you can become a subscriber. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But more importantly, it works for homeowners as well as for renters. Previously, only homeowners could install solar panels on their roof. But now you open it to renters as well, people who do not own the roofs, because the solar panels are not going to be installed in the building where they live. Another important factor is that when you put solar panels on your house, on your roof, if you sell that house, those panels go with the house. You can't just take them off, carry them with you to your new property. That's not cost effective. However, when you participate in a community solar project, when you move, as long as you move within a certain territory, your ownership or your subscription travels with you. And then lastly, this opens the door for low-income families to participate in getting solar energy for their households, because the law specifies that a fraction of the power generated by the array has to be shared with low-income families. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So Oregon has two different models that are talked about in terms of community solar models. One is called the subscriber model, and the other one is called the participant-owned model. And then the subscriber model, essentially what happens is that someone else comes along and has deep pockets and builds a large system. And then all that energy goes to the grid. And then they procure people to sign up to buy energy from that array. So the participants are the subscribers. That's what we call them, subscribers. They subscribe to the array to purchase energy from that array. In terms of where these people must live, well, for the developers and the investors, they can live anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, for a matter of fact. But the subscribers must reside within the investor-owned utility. This is what IOU means, essentially the utility inside that territory. And when you sign a contract with the developer for purchasing energy from this array, as a subscriber, you sign typically a 10-year contract, and these have early termination clauses. But they do move if you move. The membership does move with you, but you cannot transfer it to somebody else. You cannot sell that to somebody else. In the participant-owned model, the project is owned by community members. Community members put the money up front to purchase the system. And again, the power goes to the grid, and the owners get the credits from the IOU through their energy bill. And we'll see how that works in a little bit. Now, again, owners must reside in the utilities territory, but because the ownership is an asset, the asset can be sold, donated, bequeathed, etc. You can do whatever you want with that, just as you would dispose with any asset that you have. Just to give you an idea, there are 34 community solar projects currently underway in the state of Oregon. 33 of them are under the subscriber-based model, and one of them is under the participant-owned model. So how does this work? Imagine that you have a solar system that has been installed in somebody's roof, and it doesn't really matter where this roof is. And you can see here in the diagram that different people own different portions of the array in different amounts. Some people own very few panels. Some people own a lot of panels, right? So you pool the resources, you build this array, you pay for it, it's installed somewhere else, and then the participants co-own the array. Again, the owners are compensated for the energy produced by this array, which goes to the grid. They get compensated by the utility in the form of on-bill credits. Now, this is if you are a participant owner. If you are a subscriber, you can simply subscribe to this project and purchase the energy from this array, typically at a small discount, around 5%. And you don't own the panels, you simply have a subscription to the energy for the panels, and you can stay with that project as long as you want. So how it works in more detail is, let's assume that you have your PV system and you have your fraction, you're one of these individuals here, and your fraction produced 800 kilowatt hours in that period, typically a month. That energy, as I said, goes to the grid, and then your home on the other side pulls from the grid 1,000 kilowatt hours for that same period. If you're a participant owner, then the utility will pay you, and as a way of a credit, will give you a credit of $78.16 for those 800 kilowatt hours produced. And there's a rate here that is approved by the PUC. And then you pay for the rest, for the balance of that bill. I mean, the bill is going to be larger than the $78 because you spent 1,000 kilowatt hours. If you are a participant subscriber, then you pay for the 800 kilowatt hours at a reduced subscriber rate, and then you pay for the additional 200 kilowatt hours at the standard rate. And so if, on the other hand, if you produce 800 kilowatt hours, but your house only consumes 400 kilowatt hours in that period, meaning that you consumed less than what the system produced, then the utility, if you're a participant owner, will give you obviously half of the amount, $39 in bill credits, but then you get to carry over the other $39 for the next period. In the same way, if you're a subscriber, then you pay for the 400 kilowatts at the reduced rate, and then you carry over 400 more kilowatts for the next period at the reduced rate. And this obviously has to take into account that solar panels produce different levels of energy at different times of the year. And so you, in some cases in the summer, you'll be accumulating credits, but in the winter, you'll be consuming those credits. Those credits get zeroed out every March. So it says here, credits reset annually in March. And so typically you want to make sure that you can target maybe between 80 and 90% of your energy's consumption to be covered by a solar project. Now, there might be some reasons why a community solar project does not work for you. You certainly, when you have an ownership or a subscription, you cannot generate more power in the solar array than what your house or your business consumes. And this has to do with a lot of rules, particularly with the PUC, but also with the IRS and the SEC, because these projects are not meant to be for-profit projects. So you can't just sell the energy and make a profit out of the system. The system is intended to benefit your own consumption from your property, from your house. Additionally, if some of the reasons why this might not work for you is because as a system owner, there are third parties involved between you and your energy that charge administrative fees. I mean, just like Pacific Power or any other utility charge fees, yeah, there will be a few other fees that get added to that. And then you must also share the decision-making process with other people. I mean, you can't just make a decision for your panels alone. Every decision that gets made has to be made at the whole system level. And then the utility pays a fixed price for the energy you produce, and currently it's 9.77 cents per kilowatt hour. In some cases, you will be paying more for that energy to your utility. In some cases, you will be paying less to utility. So it might make better business sense or not for you to participate. Now, starting in 2022, there's going to be a 2% bill credit escalator, meaning that this rate is going to go up by 2% every year starting in 2023. And as a subscriber, there aren't many reasons why you wouldn't want to participate in this, because you're getting renewable energy for typically less than what you would pay the utility, and you don't own the panels. You just simply rent or purchase the energy that are produced by those panels. Now, here you do not have any decision-making ability. What the developer decides to do is on his or her authority. So you're just simply purchasing power just like you would from any other utility. So what have we done so far? I mean, this is all the theory behind this, and now we have something to talk about. Way back when, in 2019, seems like eons ago, in January, we had our first town hall meeting in the Talent Community Center, and we followed that up in March with Socan at the Medford Library, and some of you might remember that. And then things were going on at the PUC and with the legislature. And finally, in December of that year, 2019, the Program Implementation Manual, the PIM, was published. And this is essentially the rules of the road of how to community solar projects in Oregon. So in February of 2020, we started our project, and we decided to start to build our first project at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival production building. And many of you guys probably know this big red monster building in Talent. As you can see, it has a gigantic roof and plenty of opportunity for us to install solar panels in there. We decided to go with the participant-owned model for a couple of reasons. One of them is we wanted to make sure that the funding was made available up front, and the funding had to come from the community. But also because we thought that this was really a way to get the community involved. Rather than simply purchasing energy in a subscriber-based model. If the membership, if the participants actually own the system, it brings some sort of pride to the members. At the time, the rule said that the minimum size of a community solar project had to be 25 kilowatts. So that's what we said it was going to be our goal. And we set ourselves a stretch goal of 60 kilowatts for the enrollment of participants. Well, within 4 weeks, we enrolled enough participants to build a 141 kilowatt system, which was fantastic. I mean, the response from the community was incredible. It surprised us, and we had to actually stop at 141 kilowatts because, believe it or not, we ran out of roof space. So some of the roof had to be allocated to OSF for other reasons. So the amount of roof that OSF had allocated to us was gone. It was gone in 4 weeks. So we got really excited about that. And so here it is. Our first community solar project after a long time is now built. It's, as I said, it's at the OSF production building in Talent, 141 kW of size. It has 362 panels, which is a little bit more than what you could have put on your own roof. And the utility is Pacific Power. Our installer was True South, and we started, as I said, in February 2020. We expect to go live in November or December this year. Unfortunately, we have one small part, a piece of equipment that is still missing and seems to be caught in the supply chain melee going on in the world right now. So we're just waiting for that part before we can finish off the project and flip the switch. In year one, we've been told to estimate that we're going to be producing about 172,000 kilowatt hours per year. Some of the demographics for this project include 16 owners in the Rogue Valley, and they go by, they're widely dispersed. They start on the north side from Rogue River, and on the south side, they go all the way down to the Green Springs. So we have people in Talent, we have people in Medford, Central Point, Eagle Point, all over the place. And of those, we have 11 homeowners and 5 renters, and 3 families, low-income families, are going to be able to get energy from this solar array at a 20% discount at no cost to them upfront for the system. The financials, they're always scary when you build a system this large, but the project is going to cost us about $300,000 total, all said and done. The PV system itself is going to be $254,000, and then there are a series of fees that you have to pay to get the project certified and connected to the grid. And we were very fortunate that we got about $105,000 between grants and some installation credits from the vendor. So our payback period is about 11 years, which is not too bad considering that this is a self-funded project. And unfortunately, this is not a net metered project. Many of us have been familiar with net metering projects for a long time, and we know that they get installed very quickly and they're done. This process takes a lot longer because we are technically a power plant. And so we have to go through this process. I'm not going to go through the slide, but it took us a long time to go through this whole process, you can see over here, to get to the point where we can actually turn on the system. But that's part of what we can do. So what did we achieve? Well, we're really proud that we are the first carve-out project in the state. So the state actually assigned a certain amount of capacity for small community-driven projects. And we are the first project in the state to take advantage of that carve-out. We're also the first, and I believe the only project so far that is participant-owned in the whole state. And then we're also the first certified project in Pacific Power territory. And so you can see here that there are 17 projects currently ongoing with Pacific Power. All of these projects are still under development. I don't believe any of them has been built yet. All of these projects, 16 of them are subscriber-based, which means somebody with deep pockets came in and built the system themselves, and then are going to turn around and sell participants and sell memberships or subscriptions to the participants. We are the only project in Talent that is participant-owned. And we are the only project, and probably, hopefully, that will go live in the next couple of months, that will be live this year in the whole Pacific Power territory. So as you can imagine, we're pretty tickled pink, happy, and proud of being able to do this for our community members, for our state, and for our valley. So this is obviously not something that's closed. I mean, this project is closed, but we want to keep going. So we want to actually turn around and start building another project. And so we are ready to start building that, or start the project. I mean, as you still saw, there are an awful lot of steps that we need to go through. So we're going to kick off our next project in 2022. So we are in the process of searching for another roof and participants, people who are interested in joining and participating in a community solar project like this. So if you're interested, if you've been thinking about putting solar panels on your roof, even if you have a good roof but don't necessarily have the funds to build it, I really recommend that you talk with us, because from my own experience, I have solar panels in my roof, but I also have a membership in this community solar project. It cost me about half as much to participate in the community solar project than it did to put solar panels in my roof. So it is significantly cheaper. And it's certainly, if you don't have a suitable roof, it really, and you want to convert yourself to renewable energy, I really encourage you to chat with us. If you're not sure whether this works for you or not, talk to us. it's okay. I mean, we are not going to sell you anything that you don't want. We're not here to sell you anything. We want to make sure that whatever you decide works for you. So if in the end, this kind of a project does not work for you, well, maybe someday something else will come along that will. But if you don't have, if you're not quite sure yet, talk to us anyway. And if you've decided that this is not for you, well, that's fine as well. Nothing wrong with that. We thank you. But do tell a friend, because maybe a friend will be able to benefit from that. Lastly, as I said, this is a volunteer organization. So if you want to help, if you want to participate in helping us get these projects going, we encourage you to reach out to us, because we can certainly use the hands to move these projects along. So contact us on our website or via email. It doesn't take much work, but if you want to participate and sort of hang your hat on the fact that you are helping our community transition to clean energy, then this might be an opportunity for you. Just to finish off, this is our team, currently all the three of us. As you can see from our backgrounds, we are not solar industry or electrically oriented. We are just a bunch of volunteers with some time that want to get things done. So this is who we are, and we enjoy doing it. And certainly, as somebody said some time ago, it takes a village. We couldn't have done this without significant assistance from all of these organizations. Energy Trust, for example, we were the recipients of a grant from them. Obviously, the Community Solar Program folks helped us get this project through the process. OSF, obviously, in helping us with the roof. Sustainable Northwest helping us way back when with the first town hall meetings, in helping us get organized and get everything presentable. Socan, of course, I mean, this is the second town hall that we attend with them, and they've been extremely supportive, as well as Rogue Climate. Rogue Climate has actually played a key role in finding the low-income families for us that are participating in this project. So with that, I think I will end and open, I think, the floor for questions.
Thank you so much, Ray. So is this right here, is this that email address that people would email if they had those questions about getting started, this info at Solarize Rogue?
Yes, that is the email address to send any questions, any volunteering, anything that you want. And of course, through the website, you can go to our website at solarizerogue.org, and you can also contact us through there as well.
Great. I'm going to put those in the chat for easy access. Thank you so much, Ray. We're actually going to, we have some questions in the chat. If you are thinking of questions, keep putting those in the chat. I'm actually hand things over to Jim, and we'll go back to questions after Jim speaks. Thank you.
Jim, you're muted.
Okay, so yeah, it's great to have a moment to be with you guys. So I'm going to try to be quick. I love Ray. He's helped me out so much, but he was 9 minutes over time. So as a retired teacher, I'm going to have to deduct 10% from you, Ray. I'm sorry. Anyway, it'll free me up to be a little bit more creative, which is fun, and go a little faster, and I'll try to make up some time, and that's all good. Okay. Let's see here. It's not letting me go to my next slide. That's not good. There we go. Here we go. So who are we? So we're very much like Ray, the same, member-owned community solar project. So we have ownership. We're trying to dramatically increase solar power, be socially and economically responsible, hire local people, help out low-income folks. Yeah. But one big difference that Ray didn't talk about is, like for Ray, you have to have a Pacific Power bill. For our program in Ashland, you must have an Ashland electric bill. Okay, so it's not like you can choose one or the other. It's like, if you're in my territory, you've got to consider what I do. If you're in Pacific Power, you've got to consider what he's up to. Okay. And in our program, we've just decided on our own that we're going to try to give 10% of the electricity generated from all of our systems to low-income households for free. And we're going to have a lottery for that. And generally, the lucky families that get this or households are going to get a savings of about $500 a year, over $500 a year. So that's cool. Okay, so how good is this investment? Well, you know, the World Series is happening, and I hope it's not a good game that you're missing. Thank you for missing that right now. But anyway, if like for myself, I use 11,000 kilowatt hours a year. Okay, and if I was going to buy into this program, and if I was going to do it, I would need to spend $10,900. I'd have to invest that amount of money, and that's even after getting a 26% tax break. Okay, so anyway, but my net investment is $10,900. I could potentially save $28,800 over 25 years. So it takes money to make money, except I'm just a middle-class dude, you know, making the big bucks. And that return on investment is 4%. But again, ballpark, these numbers, for example, make assumptions about inflation at 3%. All right, it's not an inflation at 3% right now. It's going to go up and down. This assumes power inflation, the cost of power will just go up 3%. Well, that's going to change. It might be higher. Anyway, so it's comparable to what Ray is doing. You know, we think you can get your money back within 12 years. And as Ray mentioned, you can sell this asset. If you leave town, you might say, okay, who wants to buy the residual value of my panels? And somebody will want to buy that, I predict. Okay, we believe that that's very doable. So instead of buying into a 25-year system, you'd buy into a 20-year system. And there also is going to be a minimum buy-in of $2,700 just because we work with Ashland Electric and they don't want to have to do too much extra work. I guess that sounds kind of cheeky, but they have to do all of their bills by hand. Okay, it's not a big computer that does it. And so they don't want lots of people just doing this, you know, really tiny amount. Okay. All right, how does the city's net metering ordinance affect this? Okay, what does it do? Okay, all right, 2017 is when it started. And so you take a big system, and this is over on the right-hand side, is you can see there's like 10 different accounts that have different percentages. And this is actually Brad Roop, who built the three big tracking systems at ScienceWorks, and shows how it goes to the different accounts that, you know, he has rental units and so on. Yeah, so each month a set fraction of a large array is credited to your account in kilowatt hours. And this is the difference too that we have with Ray's program, is they get 9.7 cents a kilowatt hour. We don't get that, we get kilowatt hours. And so that's going to dramatically lower your bill when you get this big bunch of kilowatt hours. And just as Ray mentioned, you know, in the summer, you'll get lots of energy, you won't pay very much on your bill. In the winter, it'll come up, there's carryover, all that. So we're going to skip over that. Okay, so we have an awesome team. So I guess I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Besides being a teacher, gosh, I'm very dedicated to climate change. I taught the first climate change class in the state of Oregon. I'm going to go out there on a limb and say so, as a science class. And I also was very dedicated and was with many of our board members as an ad hoc member of the climate, Ashland's Climate Energy Action Plan, SEEP, yes. So I was there with Luis, Brian, and Marnie, like in 2016, 5 years ago. I can't believe it. And I'll be honest with you, I was hoping that this whole community solar thing would have been figured out by then. I mean, people would be working on it and it would be done. I wouldn't have to do this now, but I've spent a year of my life, about 20 hours a week, working on this to make it happen. And I am dedicated. I'm not going to give up till I succeed. And thank God Ray has helped me tremendously. Thomas Endicott's on our board from the very beginning. It's been there for 3 years. He's got great skills. He actually developed the largest system, the largest PV system in the Rogue Valley, the 200 kW DC array at Oak Street Tank and Steel, which is just beyond the Ashland Tennis Club. And then Pete Jorgensen, so lucky to have him. He's a retired engineer that's not afraid to get into the weeds, the details of legal contracts and so forth, and spreadsheets. And then Luis has got great connections in the community, very dedicated. Brian Soul, a lot of common sense, extremely dedicated as well. He's a member of the Climate Change Outreach and Conservation Commission. Marnie Koopman is also a member of that same commission. Marnie's a climate scientist. She's great with communications. Yeah, a few other people, Bob Kaplan, he's one of our advisors. He great with spreadsheets as well, helped me find the financial model. And so I'm so grateful for him. Jim Tully helps with sales. David Spinney helps with our website. Jeff Sharp got me involved in this crazy endeavor. And those are his trackers there on the left by my car, as you can see. And so Jeff, some of our programs, our systems might be trackers, might not. Okay, we're not totally dedicated to Jeff per se. We're definitely interested in doing ground mount systems, and his setup is awesome for parking lots. Lloyd Kaplan, incredible skills, such a gift to our community. She helped us with an identity plan that happened, that she developed 33 pages, who are we, where are we going, and so forth. Yeah, great skills. Sean Franks, very inspiring. Brad Roop makes things happen. He was the initial president of the Ashland Solar Co-op long ago when the world was new. Yeah, so yeah, I love Ray. He's great. He's helped me so much. We're doing the same thing. When I first reached out to Ray, I was just amazed that he would share with me all of his spreadsheets, all of his numbers. That was cool. And also the 12-page panel owner contract that he had. Now, I myself bought 17 of his panels, so I had to have my wife look at the entire contract and buy into it. She's very frugal, and it was a hard sell. But anyway, so I'm so grateful to have his panel owner contract, and we've used that to alter it for Ashland Electric. Okay, and we're trying our best to get back to Solarize Rogue. We've offered them some assistance in finding host sites and some sales techniques. We've shared our lease template. It's like Thomas knows, it's leased back and frontwards and backwards. It's 30 pages of legalese, and that might help them in the future. Also, when you have a roof, how can you figure out how much solar is going to come from that roof? So we've got some technical models that can help them with that. So yeah, so we're basically doing similar things. We have to get leases on large roofs. I would like to build 5 large systems in the next 2 years. When you have a big system, it has to be insured. So that's going to be a rider for the host site. It might be like an additional $500 to insure the panels against a freak accident. We've got to choose installers and pay them and make sure that it's a good deal. Replace the inverters around year 13. And we've got to find fractional owners and explain the contract to them. Okay. Differences, as I mentioned, we're just in Ashland. Okay, we have a different utility and many different rules. Ray has got to deal with Pacific Power, which is a giant utility. What you see there in Southern Oregon, Northern California, that's just a small part of their territory. They've got a much larger area. So he's dealing with a major corporation there. Okay. All right. So yeah, I guess I'm going to skip to this one. So you can see that we have got contacts for you guys, for the Solarize Rogue team, and for us. Okay, you can see, you can email me, you can send me a text. That's how dedicated I am. Or we've got an awesome website you can go to and input your information. Okay, so with that, I'm done with my presentation. So I think we're time for questions. Wow, I really raced through that, didn't I? Anyway, it is what it is. We have lots of times for questions, so that's fine. Okay, so take it away, Ellie.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jim. Yeah, you did make up for some time there. You get a gold star for how fast you did that. That was amazing. But we have lots of time, so I'm gonna go through the questions in chat just in order of the way they came in. So keep putting your questions in chat, and then once we run out of questions on there, if we still have time, we can kind of open the floor and hear some voices here. But I had a question for Ray. This is from Tom, or maybe for both of you. Are former landfill sites a suitable location for a ground-based community solar project?
The short answer is yes. I think there are some examples of fields in other parts of the country that have been used for community solar projects. At some point, the landfills essentially stop producing methane or whatever. You still can't build on them. You can never build on them. So it's a good opportunity for you to do that. So yes, it is a possibility. Now, the important thing about these projects, at least with the community solar projects, is that distance to the substation is a critical factor. So it would be preferable if whatever landfill or brown land or roof space is within a mile of a substation. Anything farther than that, the costs of interconnecting to the grid really start to climb rapidly.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you. Another question for you from Candace. What is the initial cost for a participant for the Solarize Rogue projects? What are the upfront funds? I know it depends on kilowatts per hour you purchase, but can you give it a range or maybe a minimum buy-in that you have?
Well, in this particular project that we did for OSF, our minimum purchase was one panel. And for purchasing one panel, the price was somewhere around $700 or $800. Just to give you a little bit of context, if in the Rogue Valley, it costs roughly $15,000 to $18,000 to install solar panels on your roof. If your house is an average house in the state of Oregon, if you had instead opted for a community solar project, it would be somewhere around the $8,000 to $10,000. So that gives you a rough number to deal with. Of course, it depends on how much energy you need for your house.
Okay, thank you. And Thomas would like to know, what were the source of the grants that Solarize Rogue received?
Yes, just recently, about a couple of months ago, the Energy Trust of Oregon actually came up with a new incentive program for small community solar projects. ETO has for the longest time been providing incentives for residential projects, for all sorts of energy efficiency projects and so on and so forth. But there hadn't been a program that specifically targeted community solar projects. Because we're a community solar project, we don't fall under the net metered project category. And so all the grants that were available for those types of projects did not apply to ours. So as I mentioned, the Energy Trust of Oregon was very gracious and provided us $100,000 as a grant for a community solar project, for a small community-driven community solar project.
That's awesome. Janet wants to know, what is the life expectancy of these solar panels?
Well, the panels are guaranteed for 25 years. And the panels that we purchased are not your run-of-the-mill panels. We actually upgraded a little bit in quality for this particular project. And they are guaranteed to not degrade any more than 0.35% a year, actually 0.32% a year. And so they're guaranteed for 25 years, which means that if any time during those 25 years, the panels degrade more than the nominal rate that I just mentioned, the company will replace them at no cost at all. Now, a lot of these panels are, solar panels have been working for a very long time. And so we have no reason to believe that these panels will go bad at year 25. They will continue producing energy for, 30, 40 years.
Right. Here's a question for both of you from Kathy. While some folks care only about the dollars, for others, it's more about our values. Please talk about the values that led you to promote solar energy.
Okay, I guess I'll just say a few words about that. Well, certainly, it's very obvious we need to dramatically increase solar energy. And the city of Ashland, for example, has got lots of really good building sites and so on, and really hasn't developed them. And we have this goal of having, we thought we could do 10% by 2020 for the city, and we're way behind that. We're like 2021, we're at 4%. And so that was kind of like city council passed that resolution and thought we could do it, but honestly, it just wasn't possible with the bureaucracy involved. And so we're way behind, really. I mean, there's a lot of good things happening, but we could do so much more.
And just to echo on what Jim is saying, if you read the news these days, there's an awful lot of climate change information about. The United Nations reports, anything that you actually look at, has some reference to what's going on in the world. And everybody's looking at the large governments, at the governments of each country, to actually dictate or define how it is that we're going to solve this problem. And although personally, I don't disagree that that's a good place to start, there's nothing stopping us as individuals from doing our part. And my point is simple in that once you as an individual do something, even if it's small, but you add it to what your neighbor is doing and what this neighbor's neighbor is doing and what the neighbor's neighbor's neighbor is doing, and we're all doing small little pieces, by the time that you add 360 million people's little efforts in this country, it might come to a point where we don't even need the government, right? Just do what you need to do. And so many of us believe that climate change is the most important aspect or problem that we're leaving behind. Many of us are on our way out, some of us more than others, but we're all on our way out. And we're leaving behind the biggest existential problem to the future generations. Nothing else matters. You know, it doesn't matter if we deal with poverty, if we deal with equality, if we deal with, whatever, if we don't deal with climate change. So our approach has always been, it doesn't really matter how small. The value to us is huge in the sense of what we're going to leave behind. There is no way anybody is going to make money, and I should make this point very clear. Nobody is going to make money out of participating in a solar community solar project, unless you're a large developer and you built a very large system. But at our scale, nobody's here to make money. We're here to help ourselves wean out the fossil fuels, and that's why we do this.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Patricia wants to know, this is a question for Ray, is a ground mount project kind of in the works for your next project or another project that you're working on?
Well, we're going to entertain any options, any available options. Rooftops are a little bit more convenient because you do not have to have the infrastructure to prop the panels up off the ground and tilt them. Anything that you add to the cost of the project makes it a little bit harder to finance. But so we would prefer to have a south-facing flat roof or tilted towards the south. But we're not proud. We'll take, if somebody has a brown field or another type of lot that we could potentially use, by all means, talk to us because we'll entertain that and we will try to make it work.
And we're interested in ground mount systems as well, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Brian wants to know what happens to old solar panels?
That's a question for an expert, and I don't claim to be one. I have no idea what happens to old solar panels.
I just want to comment that they probably could be recycled. Okay, there's a lot of important elements in them, and this is something that's probably happening. And also, but when you buy a solar panel, there's embedded greenhouse gases in them. And I feel a little embarrassed. I can't tell you, it takes like 2 years for the solar panels to work to undo the greenhouse gas emissions to build them, but there is a cost. And that's one of the reasons why, the Strackers that Jeff Sharps has are kind of attractive because they've got, they're super efficient. They're like 40% more efficient. And so the embedded greenhouse gas emissions in the solar panels are not such a big deal because you're using them so fully. Anyway, and Ellie, I just want to alert you. I realized part of the reason is I was so quick is I skipped a very important slide. And so I'm going to lose 10% of my grade if I can't show it.
Go for it.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right, thank you. All right. All right, this takes a moment. Hopefully it'll come up. All right, yay, okay. All right, wow. Yeah, this is a great slide. Okay, so this is like, what we've accomplished in the last year. So we got a financial model, I mentioned that. We've met with the city 4 times to talk about how we're gonna work with them with the billing. Ray's worked with Pacific Power a lot with their utility. We've got a great lease for the roof that we can work with. We've got a solid fractional owner contract, thanks to Ray sharing that with us. We've got a lawyer who's very experienced in community solar. And we've got a forgivable $10,000 loan that Thomas got for us from Bonneville Environmental Foundation for our first project. So in other words, it takes money to develop this. Like, lawyers don't come cheap. And so if we have 2 years to basically use this money and get a project off the ground. All right. And then when the project comes through, then we can pay it back. And the other thing I'll say is we've got some very promising negotiations going with the city, the Ashland Airport. They've just gotten back to us recently, and we're kind of figuring out that it's a very doable project. We're super excited about that. Anyway, so these are like, I just want people to understand that we've accomplished a lot. We are hoping to iron out our first site probably in the next 2 or 3 months. You know, Ray's already got his first site behind his screen there at OSF, and we've had our eyes on many sites. But anyway, just had to show that slide. Sorry about that.
Oh, thank you for showing and sharing about that, Tim. I have a couple other questions in the chat here. Gary, looks like Gary's wanting to get involved. It's got 5 acres of south sloping land that might be ripe for solar. This is a question for Ray. How do we proceed to ferret out what is and isn't possible?
I would just simply say, send me an email and you have our address, and we'll take it from there. Dan Orzak is our project manager, and I forgot to mention that he's also working with us. He's from the Oregon's Clean Power Co-op. He is our expert in our group, and he can help us figure out acreages and panel numbers and tilts and all sorts of things. And so we'll certainly take his information and most likely set up a meeting with him via Zoom and just start the conversation.
Yeah, and I would say that anybody who's interested, I just put it, again, I just put that email address in the chat if you're interested in reaching out to Ray and Solarize Rogue. Mary Ann would like to know, what is the possibility that electric companies will themselves migrate to solar or wind without programs like these?
That's an excellent question. And we've been having this argument with utilities for at least since I've been involved, and I've been involved in this kind of area since 2015. The argument goes as follows. If a utility like Pacific Power or Portland General Electric had, as soon as they started seeing the twirls in the wind, decided that we're going to switch all of our energy to solar energy or to wind energy, renewable energy in general, 5 years ago, more than likely we would all be clapping and cheering and helping them and trying to figure out how to get this done. But unfortunately, we spent 5 years arguing whether climate change exists. And so, as I said before, if the government is not going to do that, it's up to grassroots efforts to actually push for the things that we actually want to get done. And so here we are where we are today, and it's unfortunate that we've had to spend 5 years arguing, at least 5 years arguing over this. But if the utilities 5 years ago had actually gotten their act together and started the process, we'd be much farther along, and we would not necessarily need any more any residential solar or community solar projects. Now, I will say that just recently, a couple of months ago, the state legislature passed another very, very important law, and that is HB 2020. And that law now states that utilities in the state of Oregon have to become 80% renewable by the year 2020. So no more digging their heels. They have to migrate. They have to transform their business to something else, to something renewable, something that can actually help the environment by law, right? They're being forced to do that. And I am sure that there's going to be an awful lot of legal challenges in the legislature and whatnot, but the utilities really need to stop digging in their heels and start figuring out a new business model for their subsistence moving forward. That's my own personal opinion.
And then Ray, I think you said 80% by 2020.
2030.
2030. Thank you.
What's wrong with 2020?
Yeah.
I had a question here also. So once these projects really get going and you have lots of things happening and people start to move away or want to sell their panels, will that be, how will that work? Will they be able to just charge whatever they want when they're selling it, or will it be set to whatever if they were just going to buy it directly from you guys? Would that be the price? How is that going to work?
I could just comment. So this is actually Ray's idea, and I think it's great. Just a straight line depreciation. So, you know, if you've used this panels for 50% of the time, then you get half your money back. Okay, it's not like you're going to make a big money and you can sell these at a huge profit. So these are not securities. You know, we're just trying to make it fair for the person buying and the person selling, and let them get out and get some of their money back.
It goes even a little bit farther than that, and that is that by law, SEC rulings and IRS rulings and the PUC rulings in the state of Oregon, but also the SEC and the IRS, you cannot sell the panels at a profit. So yes, you can sell them if you're going to, and the only reason for you to sell them would be if you're living in Pacific Power territory and you're going to move out of state, and you are not going to, or to Portland General Electric territory, where you cannot take your panels, your membership with you. That's the only reason to sell them. But you can donate them. You can bequeath them to your family if they live in Pacific Power territory, or you can sell them. And if you do sell them, we are hoping, this hasn't happened yet, but it will happen in the future. We are going to be maintaining a sort of waiting list that we can actually tap into when somebody needs to move, or somebody passes and needs to sell their estate, needs to get rid of their assets, that we will bring forward people who might be interested in purchasing them, as Jim said, at the straight line depreciation number that is at the time. That make sense?
Yes, thank you very much. This is all really great information. So I want to direct everyone real quick. There were a couple resources that people posted just recently in the chat about recycling solar panels, if anyone's interested in looking at that. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to Kathy, and she's going to wrap us up here. And if you do still have some questions, I think that Jim and Ray are going to hang on for a little bit after this presentation is over to answer a couple more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for a great presentation. I'm going to go quickly through some things, but we have some exciting things, so I hope you'll hang in with us for a few minutes. So the link to the information and Ray and Jim's contact information are on this page, socan.eco/action, and then the left column is individual action, and they're alphabetical down to renewable energy. To find that information. The first thing I want you to know about, and this doesn't happen till November 1st, so don't go out tomorrow, but the Ashland Food Co-op each month identifies a Change for Good nonprofit, and for November, Socan is going to be the recipient of the funds for people who round up when they pay at the cash register. So as you go in November, please round up for Socan and tell your friends that that's happening during the month of November. That will really help us with our projects. So what I'm going to tell you now is all on the Socan calendar. So socan.eco/events. If you miss any details, you can catch them there. Want to start by sharing our wheel. This was designed by Steve Verme, and in the center are our board of directors and then our leadership circle, and so we really appreciate all the work that those groups do. Then going out, we have our 5 program areas and then projects under each of those. So the program areas are natural resources, transportation, community engagement, education, and government. And under the Natural Resources Program, the Forest and Fire Project will meet Wednesday, November 17th. And again, the details are on the calendar, and the Zoom link is also on the Socan calendar. Also, the government program, the County City Project, will meet this Thursday from 1 to 2. That's a Zoom meeting. And that's a fairly new project. So if you're interested in county city action, please join us for that meeting. Also in the government program is the federal and state project that will meet November 8th from 2 to 3:30. And finally in the government program is Ashland Climate Action Project. And this group is sponsoring a Zoom conversation on community-driven leadership. And this will be on Sunday, November 14th from 5 to 6:30. The guests are going to be Mayor Julie Akins and the interim city manager, Gary Milliman. This is co-sponsored and moderated by Stephen Sloan with Local Innovation Works. Should be a very interesting conversation. Invite anybody who's interested to join for that. That does require registration, and that will be on the Socan calendar. Under the community engagement program, our November monthly meeting, we're going to feature master climate protectors taking action. And that's going to be on Tuesday, November 30th from 6 to 7. And our featured speakers are going to be Erin O'Kelly-Muck, Cynthia Holm, and Flavia Franco. So we hope you'll join us for that monthly meeting. And again, registration is required on that one. Another project under community engagement is businesses taking action. And these are people, businesses who've stepped up to take action, both environmentally and in the socially responsible area. We encourage you to support them in any way that you can. Socan's Master Climate Protector is offered once a year. The next session will begin February 9th of next year. It's a 10-week course and registration is open. The course is going to be offered via Zoom. So if you have people out of the area who are interested, they can still join us for the Master Climate Protector. We have other projects under our programs that don't have current meetings, but information about all of these is on the website if you want to learn more. A very important activity that we do once a year is our strategic planning. And this is open to anybody who cares about climate change and what we might do in our area. So we invite all of you to join us. It'll be a Zoom meeting Wednesday, November 10th. It'll be 2 hours, but it gives us a chance to talk about what we're going to do in the upcoming year. So we really would like you to join us to talk about what we can do in 2022. This is other groups. So the Citizens Climate Lobby has their national conference November 13th and 14th. And they're also actively involved in a letter writing campaign. And if you want more information on their activities, you can go to their website or email Dylan at dylanhenson@gmail.com. And ROCPAC, Rural Oregon Community or Climate Political Action Committee, is working on priorities for the next legislative session. To represent us in the Oregon legislature. So any support you can give to them is always appreciated. And we learned today that the Medford Transportation Commission has some openings, and it's really important if we can get people who understand climate change and how transportation is so important to be part of this commission. The problem is that applications must be in by the 31st of this month. So that's this coming Sunday. So if you go to their website, if you go just to any of the Medford City websites, you should be able to find boards and commissions and how to apply. But One of these positions, the person is not reapplying. So we know one is an open position, which means there's a greater chance of getting someone who's a Medford resident or who owns a business in Medford to represent us as part of the community. So I'd like to end with a big thank you to Ray Sanchez-Pescador and to Jim Hartman for taking a lot of time to prepare and all the work they're doing. Really, really appreciate all of that and hope that you will be in touch with them, asking them more questions. Thanks to Ellie for facilitating the questions. That's very helpful to have somebody watching those and giving the questions to the presenters. Ashland Climate Action Project helped us with publicizing this meeting and encourage you to contact Jim about opportunities in Ashland. And thanks to all of you for joining us. It was a really good group tonight. Hope you found information that is helpful to you and hope that you will consider investing in solar co-ops and sharing this information with other people who you know, so we can spread the word. This is a new idea. It hasn't been around a long time, so we need to let people know about this option, especially for renters and people who don't have roofs that are really good for solar. And finally, a survey will be sent to you. And if you can take, I think, 2 to 5 minutes to respond to that, that information is very helpful to us. Socan's website is socan.eco. Questions, info@socan.eco. And if you're able to consider a donation to Socan, those are always appreciated. So again, thank you to Jim. Thank you to Ray. Really appreciate your time. And I'll stop the recording in just a second. And if you want to stay and ask any questions, we'll open it up. So thank you very much.